everyone, it's Raina. So this video is if you have Pluto transiting your sixth house. The sixth house in astrology is ruled by Virgo, and Virgo's ruler Mercury, and it deals with your daily routine. So what does your day look like, on a daily basis, I guess you would say? How do you keep a schedule? Do you work 9 to 5? Do you work here and there? And work itself is the sixth house. So it can be about, to me, it's like the 10th house, which is the house of career, is more of the glory. Like, what is your success level? How do people perceive you in society and stuff like that? The sixth house is like the nitty gritty, the office place, the workplace you inhabit, your co-workers, maybe the type of work you're doing could sometimes be indicated here, and your health. Pluto is this planet of transformation. It is one of the rulers, along with Mars, of Scorpio. Scorpio rules the 8th house in astrology, which is a house of death, which is the ultimate form of transformation. But there are other things that Scorpio and Pluto are connected to. Scorpio is connected to metaphysics. So the reason I'm even talking about Scorpio is because it is influenced by Pluto. So Pluto, because it's about transformation, when we think about that's what we would call alchemy. So going from one thing to another, going from one state to another is a form of alchemy. And so when Pluto transits the sixth house, it will change the way that you perceive work. It will change the way that you perceive your health. And so these kinds of things can be radically different by the time Pluto leaves. And Pluto's an outer planet. It's a generational planet. So I'm recording this in 2024. Pluto will be in Aquarius for 20 years. Gosh, that is a long time. So, when Pluto comes into the sixth house, there can be, I don't know if crisis is too strong a word, we might say challenge, but the idea of Pluto can be about issues surrounding power. Before I continue, I want to give a shout out to cafeastrology.com. I have consulted with them about certain videos that concern natal planets in houses as well as transiting planets. And some of this information is what I'm going to be sharing with you. But I noticed that they didn't mention something that I really think, and I think I've read this about the natal placement, so I think that it would be very similar to the transiting Pluto, that power struggles can ensue. Now, I remember reading about if somebody has their natal Pluto in the sixth house, that they can really have this desire, you could even say obsession, because Pluto can be obsessive, with gaining power. So the person may start a new job, walk into the workplace, and think to themselves, someday I'm going to be in the position of authority. I'm going to take over this joint, that kind of thing. So same thing I would say applies to the transit, but what I would say about this is because it is a transit, it can be transitory, meaning that you may, how sometimes we have this sudden desire for something that may not sustain itself because it is a temporary influence. But if you look at the astrological transits as not just these random things that are happening, but in your life that they're happening right on time, and there's like an unfoldment going on, then there could be other things connected to like career matters, for instance, that are really, kind of contributing to this. So one thing that I would say personally is that if somebody is disenchanted with their career, the way that their career is going, it might be that they chose a career that was based on wanting to, let's say, please their parents or do something that was financially lucrative, but it wasn't necessarily really fulfilling on a soul level. Pluto is, very intense, and that means that superficial kinds of things fall by the wayside. You will just be repelled by them. And so if you're, I call work service to others, because sometimes people talk about, they kind of emphasize volunteer work for the sixth house, and that can certainly be as well, but it is about the work that you're doing. It may kind of give you some hint, the transits that are in that house may give you an idea of how things are going, or even like what type of work you're gravitating towards. But it can also be, like your attitude about work. If you think about it, when we hear the word work, doesn't it sound like almost like slavery, like work? When I say service to others, there's a sense of like, I incarnated because I have particular gifts that I am using in service to others. That is the point of my incarnation. I'm not just here to keep my body alive. That's like the bare minimum. That's not really what I'm here for. So when I say keep my body alive, some people just are, in that first chakra of survival where they're just like, oh my gosh, do I have enough money to pay the bills? Da, 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 da. And as you work up the chakras, you can deal with different themes, like pleasure. Is my work pleasurable? Do I have power? That would be the third chakra. Pleasure is the second chakra. The fourth power is love. Am I in harmony with those around me, the people I'm serving, my coworkers, my boss? Fifth chakra, communication. Do I have the ability to speak my truth? Do I get to contribute my ideas, or am I supposed to just follow orders? Sixth chakra and the seventh chakra are more like the spiritual kinds of things. But anyway, the point is that when Pluto is in your sixth house, there may be this profound, that's another word I would describe with Pluto, deep depth or profundity connected with work. And certainly transformation goes along with that, because you can do something that is surface level and it's not going to transform yourself, and you're not going to transform other people, because it's really it's almost like there's a facade attached to it. So sometimes, there are certain things that are very, they might look good on the surface, but they're not really doing much for helping people. And this can be like, let's say we're talking about healing, because the sixth house is about health. True health comes from actual healing, not about Band-Aids or, putting something on the surface. The other thing, in tandem with health, one of the issues is diet. And the sixth house can be about diet, because Mercury is connected to rules this house and can be connected to that. So when Pluto enters this house, you may, develop an obsession with, nutrition and diet as a whole. When I use the word diet, we have really conflated it to mean losing weight, and that is so not what I mean. You could be the perfect weight for you and still be wanting to maybe clean up your diet. Pluto can be about purification. So it's very important, because I've said this to people who have their natal Pluto in the sixth house about eating disorders. And the reason I say this, obviously we know about body dysmorphia. We know how people can get a distorted image of themselves, and I'm speaking specifically about anorexia, and they can think that they're overweight even when they are starving themselves and they are emaciated. And it's possible that they started off overweight, but they never stopped seeing themselves that way. But there are other things that lead to eating disorders that are connected with purity. There's something called orthorexia, which means that a person is obsessed with eating purely, and it's coming from a good place. The person may try to clean up their diet, stop eating artificial colors and flavors, start drinking filtered water. The diet I've been really fascinated with for many years, but I've never become one myself, is the raw vegan diet. Now, a lot of those people, it's easy to become obsessed with that type of diet because it really talks about purity, and it talks about, and it's very, you could say, I mean, it is and isn't restrictive. It's very particular on, how you prepare your food, but you can eat, and of course it's vegan, so you can't eat everything, but it's not necessarily restrictive with calories, for instance. But in any case, when people have like an underlying fear-based attitude as it pertains to their health in one way or the other, or you could say their appearance, but that gets mixed in with health too, they can start going overboard, and they can become a little bit too exacting about this kind of thing. Because remember, this is Virgo's house. Virgo is the sign of the perfectionist. So that's when it can veer into something that becomes very, dangerous for the health, because a person begins to narrow the only foods they will eat, and then they become like so afraid of eating foods that are maybe not organic or not, and of course that is the ideal, but some people may, really restrict their food intake because of being afraid of contamination. So Pluto can be obsessive, and we could say like an OCD kind of response. So that's something that has to be looked at, because a lot of times what's happening there, as far as I'm concerned, is that the mind is obsessing on something to distract it from more serious matters that the person doesn't really want to face, or they're not consciously aware of. And the thing is that that's understandable, because sometimes there are very serious things that people are dealing with, and it makes a lot of sense that a person would, distract themselves. But when a person is balanced and has Pluto in the sixth house, you can probably change your life on the physical level with this transit, because, you might have a very strong willpower, and you might be able to really feel that burning desire to kind of live a very clean lifestyle. And I thought that I heard another astrologer talk about the sixth house being connected to addictions, which I've never heard before. I've actually heard the fifth house, the eighth house, and maybe the 12th house. So, in any case, I don't know if that would apply, but definitely this could be a great transit for slow but steady purification of one's lifestyle. And why I said diet, I meant diet, but lifestyle as well, because, that is a big part of it. It's not just how, and that can be what we talk about with the sixth house, is about lifestyle, because this is your daily routines. And so what do you do on a daily basis? How can you transform them to gain that inner power? That's really what Pluto, if it's connected to power at all, should be about, is power, is inner power, not about controlling others. So it depends on how high you're vibing, like how this is going to play out. Because the lower vibrational people who have this transit, they may be power hungry, and so they may devise a Machiavellian plan to take over a company. Well, when I say take over a company, what I mean is, you could be like a clerk in the company or something like that. But you might be like, okay, first I'm going to be the clerk, and then I'm going to do this. And you're like, over time, you're like, I'm going to conquer this. And because this is such a slow-moving transit, maybe little by little that does happen for you. But it could lead to a lot of negative vibes with coworkers who are threatened by your behavior, perhaps. Maybe they feel like you're trying to take their jobs or make them look bad. And so that brings me to another thing. When Pluto is in the sixth house, you may find that you have these issues with coworkers and power, where maybe they're trying to compete too. And there might even be like this covert stuff going on. I think about the tarot and the Five of Swords, of, kind of like this behind the scenes crap that sometimes coworkers engage in, because they decide to kind of exclude somebody from their little group. Or maybe like if you come in late on the scene and everybody else, and I'm talking about when everybody else has worked there for years and you're like a newcomer, they may just naturally shut you out, and you may feel like, pretty powerless, because usually like when you have coworkers, you can kind of gain this sense of like camaraderie and their strength in numbers. So there may be this feeling of, oh, wow, I don't feel like I belong here. What's going on here? And of course, it's not pleasant when that happens. So since Pluto is connected to psychology, we could call that the mind. And the sixth house is an earth house being ruled by Virgo. That's probably why Cafe Astrology talked about the mind-body connection and how you might become interested in this. And they mentioned alternative healing. Now, I don't know exactly why they're saying that, but I would say that I've always thought of the sixth house as alternative healing, even without any transits, just by virtue of Virgo ruling it, because Virgo is an earth sign, and natural remedies are alternative remedies, which when you think about it is kind of backwards, isn't it? Because if something is natural, wouldn't that be the primary thing versus pharmaceuticals? But that's, how, I was going to say that's how the matrix operates, I guess, but the world, we can say the world. So anyway, I think, and I didn't see anything about this as well, I think that this might be a time where some of you decide that you want to become a healer. Now, if you have natal planets in the sixth house, that can give you a hint at this. For instance, if you have your sun in the sixth house, you may already have an interest in health, even if you're not doing it as a profession, but you could very well be doing it as a profession. So let's say somebody is a nurse or a doctor, and they have Pluto transiting their sixth house. That could indicate that they are changing, they're shifting the way that they think about healing. Because, there is an indoctrination when you go the mainstream route where they tell you their ideas. But then this could be like other ideas about healing. They also use the word self-improvement. And I think, when we talk about transformation, we're talking about, like, they'll say, like, a mindset, motivational mindset or something like that. And a lot of times you will hear discussions about one's daily routine. And that is what the sixth house represents. And they'll say, like, I forgot the phrase, but something like own your mornings, the morning miracle. Different things that you can do, different ways to order your time so that you're really productive, so that, so that you get things done before you do other things, because that can be something that some people struggle with. And so if you're somebody who tends to have a difficult time, with time management, this might be, changing for you. It is, like I said, very slow moving. So it might not be that overnight you just notice this radical difference, but you may see that you are very intentional about time, disciplined, organized about all of these things. As with health matters, even this, all of these things, the psychology of it, or the underlying reasons why you are the way that you are, maybe things that you discover. And therefore, because you do, you're able to effectively transform yourself. This is what I was talking about at the beginning when I was talking about superficial things, because sometimes people make superficial changes, but they don't last. An example is with diet. Some people do some kind of a fad diet, crash diet, and they might get some results, but then they go back to the old habits because it was such an extreme thing that they did. It wasn't something that was sustainable in the long run. So this can really be about doing things that can have that profound transformation for you. And that can impact your life as a whole completely. So I think this can be a very positive transit for you if you're coming from a high vibe place where you're not seeking to gain outer control or power or manipulate outer circumstances as it pertains to your work environment and so on and so forth. Okay, that's what I have for you. I hope that this resonated. If you would like a private reading, the link is below. Take care. Bye.